Hey guys, it's Angel. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're taking a look at an aircraft that has previously been on the channel. This is the Consolidated Liberator, the B24, originally by Flight Replicas, an FSX developer, and it got ported and converted through to 2020 and 24 by a number of third-party individuals, with the permission of the Flight Replicas guys, of course. And this paint scheme specifically is by Yankees, a Dutch, I believe, texture artist, prolific guy, has done stuff all the way back since the FSX days, so a fantastic artist. But in general, this aircraft is an absolute legend when it comes into this sim, because it has got so many features for us. We're going to go over everything it's got on board it and tell you exactly what's working on this thing. But it is wild. Like, this thing is absolutely worth getting. I highly recommend it, because it is just free. The biggest part of this is it's free. Yes, completely free. And I can't say more than that. It gives us an incredible free aircraft that right now is actually at the standard of a number of payware aircraft we have. Not everything's workable or clickable, but it's pretty darn good. We've got worse, considerably worse. In fact, we pay for considerably worse. As you can see, yeah, I mean, we're talking not the best exterior model, but modelling-wise, better than some things we might see from like Virtual Call or Vertavia. The textures aren't terrible, they're definitely dated. Lower resolution than we'd like, but of course more and more liveries coming out that are higher resolution. This is with the standard paint kit that Yankees did it. But he's done a darn good job of making it look lived in and worn. It's a US Navy paint scheme on Liberator. In fact, where are we right now? Where are we indeed? Let's pop it inside the aircraft here. And we'll take a quick look up. We're in the Solomon Islands. This is Henderson Field, or as it is actually technically known now, this is Honiara International on Guadalcanal. Yes, that Guadalcanal. And this is the field that was fought over so heavily during that conflict. And now you get to fly out of it today. As it is in fact now a real, well, it's an active real airport here. So where else to better take off from a B24, right? And this model, like I mentioned, is completely free, but it's more advanced than you might think. Looks pretty simple? Yeah, it is. But in the cockpit here, whilst not everything's clickable yet, they are working on a lot of this to make things actually very functional. We have got a lot of things we'd like. We can clear up the blinds up there. We even have a tablet. Let me turn on the battery here and get us power. We have chocks available to put on the aircraft down there. Yep, a freeware plane that has functioning chock system in it. It's a pretty good start. It's not available with most things. Let's go back inside here. We can open the bomb bay. We can lower the ball turret. Open the waist gunner positions. We'll do that once we're in the air. We have an autopilot functionality here in the tablet for now, because this system of autopilot is not currently functioning. Chances are it may be, but for now it is not, which means that we have got at least this to use. We even have a moving map in here as well, so if you want this stuff, that's super cool. What would be really nice is to be able to click this off and make this hide, or make this compatible with the current 24 one, but it'd have to be 24 native to do that. It is not. Of course, I like having things like my windows open. This one does not yet, but I'm sure things like that will come along. All right, let's get this girl going, shall we? And we'll take her for a little short flight here, take her for a spin. We did a quick test. There we go. So our fuel pressure pumps there. So open our cowl flaps on here. We can click all of them with that, or we can just go forwards on individual ones. In real life, you fingers, you press all four of these at once. So we'll pop open those cowl flaps, get the aircraft ready to start. Now, unfortunately, other than the boost pumps being on, and there aren't all full sounds for everything yet, but there are more than we'd expect. Okay, props up. There we go. Why aren't two of my mixtures up? Unusual. I'll be right back, because this is a different variant to my other one, so I'll have to convert my controls. And like magic, I have now 4 individual throttles, see? And I have my mixtures all on one, which are those little switches down here. That's where the aircraft actually has its mixtures. And our mixtures are up there. So technically, in real life, it should be flipped around. They're not on this one, so that's technically lean and off up there. They should be down at the bottom. So this should be full rich and into the auto rich position. But it's not. Clear one. Now, yes, it's not a proper mesh and start procedure, but given it's free and it's barely functional, I'll take it. Everything's coming up on our instruments, as they should be. They've modified the sounds now to be working properly for 2024. Good girl, stay still. Okay. Now let's make sure on here we have on the aircraft our chocks removed. And our global map here is showing America right now, which is not quite appropriate for where we are. Let's get ourselves down to the old Solomons, which, if I recall correctly, are right here. Here we are. Exactly where we are. We're flying down here today to the very tip of the island Guadalcanal to a place called Marau, which is Alpha Golf Uniform. There we go. My English is rough today for some reason. I don't know why it is, but it is. Which is odd as it's my first language. So there you go. Push back here. Get ourselves just moved back out of the way, because sometimes you get spawned too close to a building, which just wouldn't happen in real life. That's what we deal with. And yes, we have instrument lighting that functions in the aircraft as well, which is nice to use. That's enough of that. Right. Differential thrust is a very important thing for taxiing this thing on the ground, because she's a bit ungainly. There we go. Okay. Let's get my head functioning here. Now, we took her for a quick little spin, but that was a slightly older version of this before some of the more recent updates. And after having flown the Microprose B17, I felt remiss not having a good detailed look into this Liberator. Because what was originally a nice, neat idea, but not entirely flyable aircraft, is now certainly more than flyable. So first notch for flaps takeoff. Let's get her on here. And I will show those of you who aren't familiar with the B24 something important. Look underneath. Look how much space there is, right? Not a lot. It's an important thing for the J models and later variants with the extra armaments. Takeoff power. Set. Not completely full power, but we're about as full as we need to be. Airspeed is alive, coming up. These are off the runway here. A little heavy today. There we go. Let's get that gear up, shall we? In fact, you can see part of the old runway there, still. Or one of the old runways. Okay, that is us pulling that in. Now, let's roll ourselves on course, following the coastline really here along to the southeast. We'll quickly go back to the aircraft page. We'll open the bomb bay so you can see it, the lower ball and the... I think I clicked that twice. There we go. So the bomb bay is a roller shutter design here, and you'll notice the waist gunners have now opened their doors and the ball turret's rolled down because it's about to poke out. And yes, these roller doors were great, but if the aircraft took damage around the fuselage, it could struggle to actually open these, so good design because it was aerodynamic. The B-17 in comparison lost a lot of airspeed, up to 15 knots when she opened her bomb bay doors, whereas the B-24 did not lose any speed opening its bomb bay because it retracted inside the fuselage. Faster, but riskier. And that's why that turret can't be down when it is in flight, or takeoff and landing, because it's too big. But it gives way more protection than the single 50 cal they had poking out the bottom of the back used to have. In fact, where that door is there used to be a single 50 coming down. And so now we have a freeware aircraft that has retractable deployable turrets and gun crews. It'd be great if they were animated, but they're not. It's not the end of the world. Let's close the bomb bay there. And here we are. Right, power coming back. It's also set our mixture to where auto rich should be. And we'll pull our props back into range for cruise. It does feel somewhat appropriate flying a Navy variant of this out here in the Pacific. Over territory she might have flown over. So yeah, it's not a perfect aircraft. It's far from perfect. And I'm not lauding this as the best freeware it's ever released. We've had very good freeware. But given we've rarely had good B24s in our sim history, in fact, to be fair, the Flight Replicas one was the only good one we ever had ever. And I mean that because we never really had one before 2002. And in 2004 we didn't have one either. We had a freeware, it was not very good. And then Flight Replicas released this one for FSX that's the version that came with 2006, but it's obviously later than that. I think it came out around 2008 or 9, maybe 10. But it was great for the time. It was a really good aircraft for the time, and it was the only good Liberator we ever had. And to see it come back and to be restored, and this, in a way, it feels like a piece of flight sim history, because as a model, it's not a bad model. I've seen far worse, and with the way that materials in modern sim work, this looks a lot better than it should, by all rights. It should look crap. But with the dynamic shadowing, dynamic lighting of various materials, this looks okay. What's cool is if we do that, actually, the shading is actually appropriately changed by those physical objects being there. Would I like much better textures? Absolutely. Would I like it to be a more detailed model that gives us everything we could possibly ever ask for? Certainly. But is it fantastic that we're basically getting a restoration in progress as the volunteers, the people who are giving their time to improve and restore this freeware aircraft, as they do? I think that's really cool. Now, when this came out, we also got the DC-4, Douglas DC-4 from Flight Replicas. That is only available for 2020, and I'll link both those in the description. I'll also link the repack for 2024 of the Liberator, which is the one I'm flying right now, and this particular livery from Yankees. Now, hopefully we'll see all those aircraft come to this sim. I'd be really excited for that, to be honest, because I would love to see the DC-4 get some love too, in terms of its functionality, because it, like this, was largely basically unclickable inside at start. It was Control-E. At least you can actually start this now from the cockpit, which is super cool. Obviously you couldn't do that at first, but it's nice to be able to trail those off. Okay. So yeah, it was nice to have them, but now this is becoming so much more functional. It's working better, the sounds are good, it's got extra added features, and tools, and toys. This gives us a lot of ability in the sim that we just didn't have of these aircraft, because arguably we're not going to see them from anybody else. Now, obviously we have a DC-6 from PMDG. That has not left 2020 to come to 24 really. I think you can port it across, I don't know how well it works. But that never officially came to 24. I personally like that kind of aircraft. Big radial transports, they're my thing. Now to have a big radial bomber, given that we have the Lancaster from Airplane Heaven, which is okay. We have Microprocessors B17, which is progressing very slowly. I made the video last week even, saying that I was disappointed in it. I am, but I'm willing to have my mind changed. Remember, I spent my own money on that. That is not me getting a copy from review and saying all sorts of nasty things. I have a lot of faith in it, but I'm disappointed in where it's at. I would have expected more before it released, and with the updates that have come out. But like I said, I'm willing to have my mind changed. That's completely fine by me. And I look forward to having my mind changed. Now, we do have, from Airplane Heaven, if you haven't noticed on their Facebook, got the Mosquito and the B25 coming very soon. The B25 hopefully before Christmas. That I'm excited for. And he appears to have made big changes. It looks very good in the pictures, better than a lot of their previous releases, which I'm excited for. And most specifically, he's made a number of changes that people observed to the aircraft in terms of its realism and accuracy. So I'm excited to see if that comes to fruition. And that has both the glass nose and the gun nose variants of the 25, the strafer nose. So we'll get to find out. What's that down below us? Oh, I still have flaps out here. I didn't even realise that. Too busy talking to you lot to pay attention to silly things like flaps on the aircraft. River twisting through the jungle down there. Very dense terrain down here. Not a road in sight. Obviously, these aircraft for the Navy will be flying over the ocean, doing coastal patrols. Much more to their use, rather than flying over land. But for us, it's flying over land. Now, the Liberator is a fantastic aircraft, and whilst we're here, we'll do a little bit of talking about that aircraft in particular, because it's a very, very useful aircraft in the war. Now, they were built by Consolidated Aircraft out of San Diego in California, and it was originally the 32, it was known as within the company, but initial production aircraft were laid down for export, especially to the RAF, etc., as LB-30s, land bomber design. Now, at its inception, it was a very modern design with this very efficient shoulder-mounted high-aspect wing. It's got on it a Davis wing. And it gave it a high cruise speed, long range, and the ability to carry a very big bomb load. So in comparison to things like the B-17, it was much heavier. Now, it was difficult to fly, and it had poor low-speed performance, but it had a lower ceiling, somewhat less robust at first than the B-17. But later on, it became much, much more capable. Now, they got huge, huge numbers, and I believe about 18,000 units of these were built total, between 40 and 45. Came in 1941 officially, was introduced. They were retired in 1968 by the Indian Air Force, by the way. Wow. We had the C-87 Liberator Express, which was the cargo version, where they took the Liberator, as my head is not looking at the airplane. They took off the turrets, so all the turrets came off it. The nose was faired over. In fact, the nose could hinge open. Obviously not in flight, but on the ground. They had it so the nose would basically was faired over and it could hinge open. Now, Flight Replicas had a version of the C-87 that was included in their FSX Liberator. And if we get that variant with this freeware project, I'd be super excited, because cargo plane. But it's also similar to the Mariner, isn't it? We'll talk about that one later. But the PB-4Y Mariner, which is kind of a Liberator, but with a single tall vertical tail, and had like blister pods here for a better observation. Very similar. Now, the Consolidated Liberator 1 was the version for the RAF, of course. Now, in terms of its actual specifications, the J model, which is what this is, talking 11 crew. That's pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, radio operator, nose, top turret, waist gunners, ball, and tail. She was 67 feet long, or 20 meters, a wingspan of 110 feet, or 34, 17 feet high, or 5.3 meters, 2,300 US gallons of fuel, which is 8,870 litres, powered by 4 1830 twin Wasp engines, so the same as the B-17, and she later had 1830 65s, but that's another matter entirely. So these are supercharged radial piston engines at 1,200 horsepower apiece. Maximum speed here, this is a big one over the B-17, of 258 knots, cruising at 187, so she cruised a lot faster. Stall speed about 87 knots. Range is 1,500 miles, 2,400 kilometers, or about 1,300 nautical miles, and that's with normal loads. Ferry range was up to 3,200 nautical miles. So imagine this running without bombs, extra fuel for a patrol aircraft in the Pacific. You've got yourself an absolute beast here that can manage to do this. So a particularly good aircraft. Armament was 1050 caliber machine guns, the M2 Brownings. For short-range missions, we're talking 400 miles, 3,600 kilos. Long-range, 5,000 pounds. So more than a B-17 there. For an 800-mile mission, and for a very long range, 1,200-mile missions, she could carry about 2,700 pounds of bombs. So still pretty good there. That's particularly for the Pacific. Now, in terms of the variants, like I said, I mentioned, of course, we had the early ones, the Liberators, which were the first combat-ready B-24s. They served with the Royal Air Force. Get myself back at the cockpit here and steer us on course rather than yapping so much. So the Navy nomenclature was the PB. It's a patrol bomber. We saw that with the PBY Catalinas. So the B-24s were the navalized versions, which was the PB-4Y, which was J, L, and M models, which were just normal versions. And those are 1G as well. They had the Echo nose turrets. Now the PB-4Y Privateer, which was development of this aircraft, which had the large single fin, lengthened fuselage, and it had improvements and changes. That was, of course, the version with the big single tail you've seen. I think there's still one of those flying with the Consolidated Air Force, or the Commemorative Air Force. How far away are we from our little spot? This could be a tricky arrival, by the way. There's 2,000 feet of runway, so we're going to have a wonderfully difficult time getting in and out there. Oh, we're not far away at all, actually. Way over half of our journey is complete, and we're going to set the autopilot here to try it out. So, okay, we're setting it a hold for altitude and heading. Those are holding, good. Okay, that's surprisingly easy. And it does our job for us, and we can of course adjust it as we need to. Let's make sure we check on our heading here. Yeah. Is it going to turn on course? It may not, but it's better than nothing. Oh, it did. No, it did. We're on course exactly. Okay. Very nice. So yeah, no, the British Commonwealth variants we mentioned, of course, those were called the Liberators, where the name came from, not the Americans. A lot of the names American aircraft and vehicles had came from the British during the war. We liked names, the Americans did not. So we went for that. Now, we had the Liberator C Mark II, which was a transport for us. We called it the, well, we called it the Commando, actually, surprisingly enough, which, not the Curtiss Commando, the C-46. A lot of weird naming going on, of course. Now, the weird, funny part, though, the Liberator C Mark I was an RAF direct purchase aircraft, but they were unsuitable for combat and they were rebuilt as transports, and they were used by BOAC, which is the British Overseas Airways Corporation, and it flew between the UK and Canada, including transferring aircrew, ferrying Lend-Lease aircraft. So, weirdly enough, initial Liberators served as cargo aircraft and were flown by the British, which is kind of cool. And why we found them unsuitable for combat, I don't know, but we did. Now, we had one of our first reconnaissance anti-submarine versions, the Liberator GR Mark I, which had a belly pannier on the aircraft with 4 fixed forward-firing 20mm Hispano cannons and a ASV radar and 2 underwing AGGU antennas. So she was able to detect and track submarines and shipping, and those 20mm cannons were literally so the pilot could aim the entire bomber at a surface U-boat and gun that thing up. Which worked, I guess. Now the Mark II-Bs, those were our first combat-ready Liberators. So the bigger nose, deeper our fuselage, wider tailplanes, self-sealing fuel tanks. We liked our self-sealing tanks, built to British specifications with British equipment and Bolton-Paul turrets. So there's no B-24 equivalent, but it's similar to the 24C, if you want to think about that. Top turret, we had ours further back than the Americans did, whereas the Americans, it was very close to the front, as you see here. The American one is here. Ours was about there on the C model. We liked our top turret more central on the aircraft. The Americans liked it near the cockpit, essentially. The Americans are weird. Right, we need to veer to the left a little bit here, so keep ourselves on course. We're not too far away now. That's enough waffling about Liberators, realistically. But they did serve very well. They served the RAF, of course, Coastal Command especially, and they had some weird looks. Like I said, they had the bulge to the nose, basically. On the Coastal Command variant, they had the radar antenna here. They had the bulge for the actual radar here, and they had that faired over glass nose from the early models here. So a bit of an unusual looking aircraft compared to what we've seen here. Of course, some of them had lights fitted to them for anti-submarine warfare. So yes, literally a light to look at these things. But they did serve extensively in the Pacific, of course, and they did electronic warfare and various other duties and tasks. So it's all worth looking at, really. Right. We shouldn't be super far away now, so I'm going to take us off the autopilot here. We could focus on flying the airplane yet again. And I'm going to pull my ball turret in now. And the waist gunners. Okay, boys, back inside the aircraft. And you'll notice the ball turret rotates down. And will retract up into the actual fuselage as the waist gunners pull themselves in, close those hatches. The B-17 I don't think you could close the rear thing off. Some of them had glass fairings over, or perspex fairings, but this could actually close them. They had doors. Graceful looking aircraft, the B-24. Efficient. Arguably, whilst the B-17 gets all the fanfare and the fantasy of the war, I actually like this one personally more. I always like the Liberator more. Okay, so we're basically directly on course here for our destination. Let's see if we can spot it down below us. I think it's right down there on the coastline. This is going to be hairy, by the way. So this is an AGGH special. We're going to do something out of Unbroken. We're going to do something silly here. There's some butt-leving flying, as someone commented on my arrival into California in the B-17 video. We're about to show what kind of pilot I am with World War II bomber aircraft. As you've already noted, pretty hairy, and it's about to get worse. That's our field down there. 2,000 feet of grass, which is going to be spicy in this aircraft. So it's a good low, straightened approach over the water there. We're going to have to make this one quite exciting. That's not a lot of runway, is it? That is nothing. Oh, hold on to your hats, boys and girls. It's about to get very cozy. Okay. Idle power. Mixture's rich. Props are full fine. Speed is coming back. Oh dear God, what am I going to do here? Well, we're making this thing work. That's for sure. Okay, speed is good. Landing gear, coming down. Yeah, that's going to be tight as a fit. Okay, baby, let's do this thing, shall we? The tricycle gear makes it much easier to land in that regard for certain aspects. Flaps to full. Well, we'll go for half for now. They haven't fully gone down there. I want to get myself turned around first. We'll make a run. Okay, let's do this thing, shall we? This feels appropriate for the Pacific. Having to land into a field just to get, because it's the only one available. Low on fuel. Things are hard. Let's make it work, shall we? Flaps to full. Okay. There's the field in front of me to the left. It's right there. So base to final here. Keep it about 100 knots right now, 100 miles an hour. A little faster, it's going to sink otherwise. Oh boy, it's going to be tough. I should have probably turned in a bit later. But we're going to make it work. That's what we do here. Hold on to your hats, boys and girls. Hold on to your hats. I'm a leaf on the wind. It's about to go through a wood chipper. Let's kill a little speed here, shall we? That's it, good girl. Come on. Dance for me. Kill off this speed. And nose up. Power idle. And we're down. Brakes applied. Ooh. Wow, okay, I made that with plenty of room to spare. Rather impressed with myself, actually. That was anticlimactic. I was good at that one. Ooh. Yeah, we didn't use much room at all there. I killed off way too much speed. We were basically on the edge of a stall landing in a Liberator. Why not? So this beautiful little grassy field, we'll pull ourselves off to the side here. Let's use our outboard #1 engine. Most leverage around. Yeah, the sounds do still need some work, but they're getting better, admittedly. Put the parking brake on. There we go. And we can hop out. So, not bad for a free aeroplane. Not even slightly bad for a free aeroplane. I thought it deserved more of a look than my quick 5-minute blast throughs that we had of the earlier version of it that had less features, the sounds were buggy, it wasn't so great. Whereas now we've got a more advanced aircraft that's getting more and more updates as time goes by, it's getting more and more things added to it, and it's getting more functions brought back. So what you're essentially flying is a restoration project that's getting better and better, which excites me, and it's one of my favourite World War II aircraft. There is a number of others, the A-26 Invader, obviously, and a few others, which we'll have to find out another time. But for now, go download it. What are you waiting for? Go fly the Liberator. It's great fun. Bye!